So question one, what do you do when leadership won't solve well-known problems? So let's break it down. Our nervous system is often triggered by something in our socialization or the way that we grew up. And when these situations come, it'll often create a predictable number of responses. We'll people please, we'll have the inner critic will start going wild, we'll go into perfectionist overdrive, or we'll get stuck in self-doubt and indecision. When we're talking about what do you do when someone else won't solve an issue? So there's a lack of control that's going on there that we just need to acknowledge. Like, this thing should be fixed. I believe it should be fixed, and it's not being fixed. And so there can be a number of things at play. You can be in a fight response where you're anger and frustrated, and that can either be directed outward or inward, or you can be in a fawn response where if something's not getting fixed and you feel responsible for other people's comfort, then you want that thing to be fixed so that everyone around you can be comfortable. When we're talking about how socialization can trigger those responses, and I want to step back for just 1 second, because I think and I meant to say it right at the beginning of this, there is one thing that's completely outside the realm of thought work in this situation where simply you're not paid to care. And that can sound really mean or selfish or whatever, but you're paid to go in and do what you're asked to do each day. A lot of times we don't even get to define what our job is, because sometimes you think it's my job to make sure that this thing gets done. It's your job to do whatever you're asked to do on any given day. And then the frustration comes when you think this is something that I should be able to solve, or this is something that other people should solve for me. That creates anger and frustration, but only for you. The caring only creates a problem for you, because we see people like Chad. Chad doesn't care. Chad's like, not my problem, and can just go on with his day, right? So when we're talking about something of anger and frustration or disappointment or confusion or whatever's going on in this situation, a lot of times it's because we've decided something should be a certain way and then it's not. And so every time that we notice that, then we feel some level of frustration or disappointment or whatever the feelings are. But those are only happening to us. And maybe other people agree. Like the person who asked this question was asking about a well-known problem, right? So other people agree. So there might be something where people are chit-chatting here and there about this thing that's not getting done, where you're, each expressing your frustration to each other and perhaps not to the people who should be changing it, right? In your opinion. But I want to just lay that out there, that you're not paid to care. It's not a requirement. The requirement is you go and you do what's asked of you. And sometimes those two things can be in opposition. Okay. So let's talk about the socialization aspect of this, right? And it feeding into us having that fight response where we're either turning it into an inner critic, or maybe we're creating interpersonal waves within the company, or the fawn response where we feel responsible for other people's comfort. So socialized, I say this pretty much every time we get together like this, but for women, we're validated and praised for our appearance and for caretaking. And so we don't get any validation cookies when we prioritize our comfort ahead of other people's, right? So it might be confusing in this situation where we think we care about how other people feel. We care about something operating smoothly here. Why doesn't leadership care? But again, that question is only creating frustration with you, because if leadership cared truly, if they had the ability to make the change, if they cared to make the change, we will never know what's driving this problem not being solved. But our idea that they should be solving it is only creating a problem for us. And I'm going to keep coming back to that, because I think that's the really, really important part of what I want to do when I answer these questions, is help you find a way to feel in control of a situation and not feel like that you're at the mercy of all of these other things, that your mental health and well-being is at the mercy of other people doing or not doing certain things. So what's going to happen in here? Well, we're going to feel frustration and anger, right? We're going to We might start creating waves to our own detriment. Like, this was me. It would probably still be me if I had, for sure, it would still be me if I hadn't discovered mindset work or thought work and really started realizing like how much discomfort and frustration and anger and everything that creating that, like how much it was harming me and not really changing anything. It was taking a lot of my energy, but not really changing anything. But I was definitely the one who was going to make waves. I was going to be the squeaky wheel. I was going to bring it up at every opportunity that I got that this thing's not fixed. Who's not fixing it? And I thought, oh, I'm just a person who's willing to speak up and take a few bullets. But like my idea, the wanting it to be having an idea of how things should be and then arguing with the reality of how they actually are only created problems for me, both inside me and interpersonally, pretty much any place that I ever worked. Or we might be confused. We might be trying to rationalize the irrational. Where you're just like, if I just could understand why this wasn't being fixed, then I could feel better. But as long as no one's getting fired, some things will never change in a company. And that can sound like really dark, but if no one's getting fired, it's not really a problem, right? People will take care of things when their own survival is at risk. And then if it's a difficult thing, if it's a problem that's really hard to change, or there's a lot of opposition or whatever, there's not resources, whatever the reason is for it not being changed, then the status quo will always win. It will always win. If you're still getting your job done, even if it takes you like a whole bunch more hours to do it, no one's getting fired for that. Ashley said, oh man, can anyone else relate? Starting my last position, there were so many obvious issues to me, and I felt like a crazy person who kept on speaking up about it. But like Gretchen said, it was really only impacting me negatively. Yeah, I didn't realize this. I just thought, no, like I'm just really dedicated. I'm passionate, right? Like I really thought that this was so important. And if I let the ball drop, then I don't know, terrible things were going to happen. So yeah, Ashley, I think a lot of people can relate to this one. So that brings me to the last thing when we're talking about the feelings. Like one question to ask yourself is, do I want to make this my problem? Is this problem so important to me, right? And we can get into this kind of where we can try to rationalize that. It's my job. Well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't, right? It might be, you might think I could be getting my job done more efficiently and then I would get to be able to work on these other things if you would get me this piece of software or solve this friction point or whatever, right? But as long as nobody's getting fired, right? Do you want to make it your problem? Or Amy said, yes, Gretchen and I worked at a few of the same places. Yeah, she knows. Amy has seen me like create a lot of waves over many, many companies. Yeah. All right. So behaviors that are going to come up. So think about this. Of course, we're frustrated when we're doing our jobs and it seems like other people aren't. Of course we are. That makes sense, right? Of course we feel angry or betrayed when we're not getting the thing that we need, when the problem isn't being solved, when it's creating issues for us, when we think I would be so much more effective at my job if this were solved. Why does no one care? Of course, we're going to feel angry and betrayed because we're showing up trying to do our best every single day. And it feels leadership or some other part of the organization isn't holding up their part of the bargain in the same way that we are. Right. So those are very, very real, rational responses, right? It's just, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to hold on to it and make our day-to-day lives frustrated and feeling angry? Or do we want to process that feeling of anger or betrayal and then move through it and move forward? And of course, we care about doing our jobs. Of course we do. And we expect that other people care too, right? But caring is optional. And caring that much is creating a situation where you just don't feel good about going to work every day. Then you need to like think about, how do we intervene in here? How do we find a different way to look at the situation that makes my day-to-day life better? All right. So what happens when we start doing this stuff? We internalize the frustration and we complain about it with our peers, which impacts our morale and other people's morale. And not that a good bitch session isn't warranted now and then, but if you find that you're getting together and complaining about the same things all the time, is that beneficial to you? Is it beneficial to anybody, really? We call it out and then we risk retaliation, right? Like I've got myself in so much hot water, I couldn't even begin to tell you how many times I've done this. Or we make a problem that we didn't create and we make it a problem. We create a problem for ourselves and we didn't create the problem, right? We just acknowledged that this exists and shared it with someone who we thought would have the authority and the desire to fix it. But we also don't have the authority to solve it. So we didn't create it and we don't have the authority to solve it. That's why you feel so frustrated. So you have to just let go of control of that. Of this isn't something I created. It's not something I have the authority to solve. The only thing I have control over is how I look at this situation right now. Okay. Here are my tips for you to try on this one. Remind yourself, I'm not paid to care. I'm paid to do whatever I'm asked to do, whether that I think that's stupid or not. And that would be my thing of, no, that's stupid. We have to fix it. No, that's stupid. We have to fix it. So much trouble that I got myself in over that. Try a thought like, I can not put myself in the line of fire and still be a great team player, right? I can still be dedicated to my job without being the person who's going to take a bunch of hits over something that ultimately they're not going to have any control over solving. I can not involve myself in an issue and still be great at my job. It doesn't mean that you don't care. It doesn't mean that you're not doing a good job. It just means that I don't have any control over this. I'm going to let it go. Thanks, Shannon. She said this is really useful. Awesome. All right. And then the last tip that I'll offer on this one is just watch the shoulds and coulds and woulds. As much as I advise y'all to not judge yourself with those words, they create that same sense of anger and frustration when we turn them externally, right? And they should be doing this. They could do so much more than they're doing right now. If only they would just do this one little thing, right? Like just think about when you're using those words, what kind of feelings and emotions that, yeah, actually I can send them out. I'll send them out and written out as a follow-up, or here, I can even post them in here right now so you can have them. But yeah, that's a great ask for sure. All right. Posting those in the chat. But you want to really watch those shoulds, coulds, and woulds in any situation, right? Because particularly if we think another person should or would be doing them, yeah, Asha's going to post them around your office. It will take the stress down on this sort of thing, right? It'll just give you some space and it'll set you free from a thing that you feel like has control over you right now. All right. So that was question 1.